For me, the best books in life always feel like they're written just for you. I was about 16 years old when I first got into reading in a big way. I was guided on to Nick Hornby's High Fidelity by the mother of my best friend at the time. I'd just gone through my first relationship breakup, I was only 16 years old, it hadn't ended well, and I was drinking by myself each night this Polish vodka that I'd got from a guy at work, and I just felt so sorry for myself. But I remember reading the first chapter of that book and feeling like he'd written it just for me. Like the whole book was about my life. I was only 16 at the time, okay, but I could completely empathise in my head with what that character was going through. And I sort of felt the same thing when I watched the film, but I had no real interest in film at that point. Books had just entered my life in a big way, and I was going to give them the time and attention they deserved. That was until one day when I woke up with a fuzzy head to find my mother sitting in front of me, the pair of us sitting in the bathroom. She informed me I'd had a seizure while I was reading on the toilet. Had a huge fear of toilet books ever since. I just thank Christ it was her that walked in on me, because I can't imagine the image of me with my willy flapping about while I was having a fit and foam coming out of every orifice is an image that anybody else would want to see bar my mother. We don't really talk about it anymore though, it's fine, we've just sort of brushed over the fact that it happened and we never mention it. And sadly my love of reading sort of ended there. I managed to read enough books that I got through sixth form and made it to York University. But again, that posed new problems because I always had this fear that I'd have a seizure every time I read a new play. On the rare occasions that I did have a fit, I'd generally have them in my room and it would be fine, but there was also times when I'd have them in the pub or in the library. And I was living in constant fear that I'd have one in public and that it'd be putting a strain on other people's lives as well as mine. And I did genuinely always intend on going to the doctor. I knew it was just a case of getting pills and going on the medication and everything would be fine, but a mixture of fear and laziness stopped me from doing so. It was too many train tickets and tests and time spent getting there. And there was also a small fear that I'd have to give up beer, because apparently some of the tablets you're not allowed to drink on. Essentially my attitude was that I would rather suffer seizures than take medication that meant I had to give up beer. When university finally ended I realised that I'd got through 3 years and could only name 3 books that I'd read. That's comic books excluded though, that's a different story. And yeah, I'd enjoyed the drinking an awful lot, but surely not enough that I'd given up on books. And the other problem was that I kept buying books even though I knew I couldn't read them. I'd see one in a second-hand shop or read the reviews on the front and decide that I liked it. And it was like I was rounding up all the best books ever written just to torture myself with the knowledge that I couldn't read them. People would come into my room and look at my books and say, "Oh, what's this book like? What, have you read any other by the works of the author?" And I'd just have to go, "Nope! Never read any of those books on that shelf there, mate. Nothing." Anything I'd read before I turned 17 was fair game, but other than that, I just had to look at them on the shelf getting dusty. Anyway, I finished university and a phone found its way into my hand and I called the doctor and arranged a meeting and it was as simple as that. Suddenly I was on pills and he said that I could still drink alcohol and I could start reading again. It was like all my Christmases had come at once in the shape of a tiny little pill. I think the main reason it took a while is because I've got this really irrational fear of being on a phone, like if I talk to someone I don't know on the other end I might die or something. It's unlikely, but there's a possibility, right? So now I'm devouring books at an enormous rate, like someone who's late to a party trying to play catch-up. And I know it might sound ridiculous, but I'd genuinely forgotten how narrative worked. Like, that the writer had to explain what a character looked like, rather than you just seeing it in front of you, like in a film, which by now has far surpassed reading as my favourite pastime. And I don't think reading can take its place anymore, really. It's like having a long-lost brother who you meet up with and you know there's a connection, but there's just something that you've lost over the years that will never come back. And I'm trying to bridge the gap. I'm trying to get back into words. I just don't know why it took me 3 years to do this. I really don't. And yeah, I did draw. Surely not enough that it meant I had to give... And yeah, I'd enjoyed the drinking fucking... But surely not enough that I'd get